Hi, welcome back. Our project in progress is going to be some stools. Guitar players sitting around, little kids. They're going to be log legs with the tenon joints into the actual seat. But these seats are maple cookies. They came down, actually one of the few live trees I've cut since we've been here. I try to take down the standing deadwood and use recycled materials as much as possible. However, this particular tree was leaning over my barn, so it wasn't looking particularly healthy, and I figured I would take it down before he took it down and wiped out my barn. So we block and tackled it, pulled it back away from the barn as we cut it, and dropped it to maple. I've used a lot of it already, but the cookies I cut with the intention of making small tables or seats or something along those lines. There's a lot of steps that are involved. It's been a while since we've done a video. We've been doing some shop improvements. I've added storage cabinets. I straightened up, except for behind me. New workbench top. This still needs to be biscuited, glued, and clamped and finished. It's all basically fur. Breadboard ends. They're going to get a couple of dowels through the ends to tie in the ends. You don't glue the ends. You want to be able to move a little bit. With the expansion and contraction being the grains are going a different way. So these are going to get glued though on the long way eventually. Right now they're not. That's my next project. Anyway, back to this. The maple seats, what we're going to do is we have to peel the bark off. Bark doesn't stay. It's not going to stay. There's ways of keeping the bark on or putting the bark back on. I'm not a fan. I like taking it off. You peel down all the bark, all that wood fibrous attachment between the bark and the actual heartwood of the tree. And I peel all that off. I use chisels. I peel it, then I put it in the vise, and I'll take all of that extra fibrous stuff off. Then we'll sand it, and we'll keep the natural contours of the wood, that live edge of the wood. That's what I like. These are perfect size for a little stool. What'll happen is after we get it all cut, we'll rough sand it just to get rid of any little spots. Then they're going to go on the table. We're going to run the router sled over it, and we're going to flatten them out nicely, probably 1 3/4, 2 inch max. And in the bottoms are going to get tenoned log legs, maple legs. That we'll do next. So that's what we're going to do here. Okay, cut this off, clean it up, and as you see, I got a whole bunch of stuff. So this is actually the time-consuming part of the process, is getting all this fibrous underwood out of there. It's got to come off. You can sand it off, but it doesn't sand real well. It starts to clog my sander up. So I actually peel it, and while I'm peeling it, I'll do a little reshaping of the wood, because nature's pretty good, but sometimes you want to accent a curve or flatten a bump especially in a stool where you might sit and feel that against your leg. So I like doing it this way. Again, a little more time consuming, but it's the way I do it. There are other ways. I'm never going to tell you that this is the only way. All right. I like maple. Maple's fun to work with. It's hard. Well, hard maple. Hard. It's a hardwood. It doesn't stain real well. You gotta be careful. It gets splotchy, so you gotta do a little prep work before you stain maple. But I like using oil a lot, and I'll oil stuff up, and then sometimes I'll just rub it up with the oil and get a low luster, and sometimes I'll use a poly over the oil, which you can do. You just gotta make sure that oil cures. Once it cures, you can't put poly over it. So it all depends. A lot of different ways to finish things. That's a whole nother art itself, and I'm not the end-all expert in finishing. I just I have certain things that I like and certain things I do, and that's the way I stay with it. So I gotta keep working on this, keep peeling back. This side's pretty good. I got a little bit of this here. You'll see, comes off. You want to take long passes with the chisel. You want a sharp chisel. It doesn't have to be a real expensive chisel, but you got to keep it sharp. All right. Sometimes it's better off to start off with a tool that's not very expensive, because then you have to sharpen it, and you have to get good at sharpening it. You can't have a chisel for 50 years and never sharpen it. Okay. It's going to take. I sharpen these things. These probably have 15 or 20 sharpenings under their belt. You get the right tools, get sharpening stones. You get the sharpening guides, and if you got chisels that are really beat up, they actually make machines that'll rough cut them for you. But you still got to do the handwork. You still got to do the fine stone work, or chisels just aren't going to work right. Okay. All right. So let me get back at it. All right, I got all that off. I'm going to take a piece of 100 grit sandpaper, put it on my handy dandy little sander. I'm going to clean up the edges. We'll finish it by hand with the grain. All I'm going to do with this is very lightly just run around and just take off any ugly, crunchy nuggets and anything else I want to remove. But I'm not going to finish sand with this, obviously. I mean, this is all different elevations, up and down, round, flat, and this is just going to flatten things out. So we're just going to touch it real easy, run it down with the front edge of the sander, and then we'll actually finish it off by hand. But I'm not going to do that now. Once I do this, this is going underneath the router sled to get cut down and cleaned up on the two faces, so I have parallel faces. All right, we're just going to finish roughing it up, and that's going to be it for now. All right, so let's take care of that. If you notice, I had the sander unplugged when I put the sandpaper on. If it accidentally goes on when you're putting the sandpaper on, is it going to give you a life-ending injury? I don't know. But I mean, you know what? If you're safe with the stuff that's can't really hurt you too bad, then you're going to be safe with the stuff that can hurt you. So we don't want any bad accidents. So let's see what happens. I'm also going to turn the speed down a little bit on this sander, so we don't beat the wood up too much. Now what's happening here is we're basically just taking the real rough stuff off. I'm actually going to use 80 grit with a round bar to go with the grain to do my next layer. But as I said, I just want to get all this rough stuff taken care of, and then we're going to cut it up on the router sled. First part of the process is done. We've debarked, we've cleaned it up, and I sanded it with the 100 grit. What happens was we started with something like this. All right, looks all rough and beat up, but it'll be nice at the end. Still got the bark on it. Bark's got to come off. That's my opinion, for what it's worth. Once the bark's off, we're down to you got chisel marks. You still got some of that fibrous underlay of the bark itself between the bark and the wood that you want. Okay, so this is, I'll take this off with the chisel as close as I can, as most of it I can. I try to make as few marks in the wood as possible also. And then once we've done this, once we've peeled this off with our chisels, then we wind up and we sand, then we wind up with this, which is really quite nice. What we're going to do is next segment we're going to put it under the router sled. We're actually going to cut it. What we do with the router sled is this will sit flat on the workbench, and it's pinned in place. The router with a special surfacing bit will be passed back and forth, make it nice and flat and straight. Then we'll flip it over, and we'll do the same thing on the back side. And what that does is it gives us two perfectly parallel sides that we want. We can't run this through the planer or the joiner because it's the end grain of the wood. It's just not going to work. I don't care how careful you are and how little you take off. It's not good. It's not good. You catch the edge, you'll blow the edge out. So the router sled is the way to go with it. Okay. So we got this nice live organic edge that's going to be our seat. Now, once we grind this down on the router sled, we may find some imperfections. And what we'll do with the imperfection is I may inlay a bow tie, a bow tie plug here that'll keep this crack stabilized, this check mark stabilized in it. But I'm not going to do any of that obviously until I have two nice parallel sides. And I'll wind up with 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches. This is about 2.25 right now. I'm gonna chop a fair amount off of this. Okay, so that's it. So next time we get together, we're gonna take it and throw it under the router sled, and I'll show you how that all plays out. All right, set up our router sled, set up our piece. It's locked in. We're gonna take a tiny bit off at a time, 1/16, maybe 1/8, because right now it's all up and down. So we don't want to take a big chunk out. We're going to just take a little at a time, and be patient, and it's going to flatten out nicely. And we'll flip it over, and we'll do the other side. Okay? Safety glasses, hearing protection, sucker's loud. The actual blade or bit is a surfacing bit. It's got 4 teeth on it. Spins around. And the edge, the corner, is going to take off a little bit at a time as we go across. Now, when you're doing the long grain, you go with the grain, like these 2x4s. It comes out nice and easy. End grain's tough. You're cutting through all the fibers on a 90-degree angle. So we gotta make sure we take our time, go nicey nice. All right. So let's get this critter fired up, and we'll start cutting it. And there you have it. I'm going to drop the blade another eighth or so. Finish this off. When we sand this up and prep it for finish, we'll take care of any of these little marks that are left. But again, end grain's tough. It doesn't want to cut. But this with the surfacing bit is very smooth. Now once we do another pass, if it takes care of all this, we'll flip it and we'll do the other side. Alrighty, the trusty router sled. All right, I take this out, and now what we have is two parallel faces, which is what you're going to want when you're working with things. Obviously, you don't want one shooting off to the side. But what we're going to do is we're going to pick one to be the top. This is going to be the top, and I'm probably going to drop a little bow tie. Little piece of wood. It looks like a bow tie, and you inset it into the wood to stabilize this check mark. So I'll probably put one on the top and one on the bottom. But this thing's pretty nice. And obviously we got sanding to do, and I'm gonna run the one of the curved router bits just along the edge, just to kill the edge. That'll be the front most likely. This will be the back, and just a little stool. It's fun. I like doing things that I'll see something, I'll see a piece of wood, I'll say, you know, that would make a nice whatever, and that's what I do. I don't say, oh, I got to make 10 stools for a website or anything like that. So I make stuff as I see it. I'll take a piece of tree trunk that's split off. I'll cut it and I'll drill a lamp assembly into it and make a lamp out of it. It all depends what I see in the material. Okay, so I got all these to go. I'm gonna make 5. I'm gonna make 5 of these. This one's a commission. This one's actually a commissioned piece. Somebody's. This is specifically for someone. The other 4 are gonna be probably follow me to the craft fair or some other thing. Anyway, next step is gonna be make the legs. All right. Last step, the legs. The legs can be squared, it can be live edge, round, natural, whatever you want to call them. Whatever you want to make. I mean, that's the point, right? We're making stuff that we want to make. So I got a block here. This was a branch, and it's maple. And I cut the end of the leg or the brace with this bit. Now these bits come in all different diameters. This is a 1/2 inch. They also come inch and a half, 2 inches for the larger logs. And what will happen is, usually I strip the bark. I'm not a fan of leaving the bark on. I just did this for an example piece. But we strip the bark off. Okay. Once this is in the drill, this goes into the vise, and we'll come in from the end and drill this in the end and make a nice piece on the end here. So what will happen is you wind up with something like this, where it's going to get a 1/2 inch hole drilled into a leg, and it gets inserted into the hole. I mean, it's not really rocket science, right? So we'll make all these to the same size. We'll make our legs to the same size. We'll dry fit everything, put it together, make sure our lengths are good and it's what we want, and then we'll put we'll do the final assembly on it. Okay, so that's what happens. The way we get to this is we take our stock, which in this case is a maple branch, and we're going to peel the bark and the layer under the bark, the phloem, the fibrous part of the tree. That's what carries the nutrients up to the leaves. Okay, but it's got to go. It's fibrous. It won't stay on. It's not going to stay on. So that's got to get peeled off. So what I do is I have this little jig here that I've made for just this purpose. It sits in a little hollow, the branch, And then I put a little capper on it, like this, to help hold it in place. And then I clamp it down. They make these jigs. They sell them for $100, $150 a piece. And then what we'll do is, oh, and I don't use money where I don't have to, so I made my own jig. I've got a couple of what are called draw knives. They make smaller draw knives too, which would be better for this. I don't happen to have one, so I use my 14-inch. I keep these very sharp to do my cutting with. The draw knife is going to come down. You're going to pull it towards yourself. You start at the end, work your way in, and just clean all of this bark off. It's like sharpening a pencil in the old days. This is a monster. This is an antique, but I use it all the time, and I use this for the big logs, to cut big logs. It is absolutely razor sharp. I keep my tools sharp as possible, because when you work with dull tools, that's when you have accidents. The chisel skip or a tool skip, and you wind up clipping yourself, and it's sharp enough to cut you better believe it. So if you keep them sharp, you keep better control. That goes for your chainsaws, your chisels, your hand saws, draw knives, anything you're gonna shape wood with, cut wood with. You got to keep sharp. You got to take care of it. These, I don't go crazy with these. I actually use a sharpening stone that I dress my axes and hatchets with. And all I do is I'll do it by eye, and I keep it dressed. I've gotten pretty decent at it. My blades are sharp end to end. They're even. They're clean. I don't have any divots in them. It's just I can do it. If you're sharpening chisels, you're talking about having a chisel guide and a sharpening stone. It's more involved, but that too is not rocket science. All right, as long as you get your angles right and you have decent tools, you keep your stuff sharp. So you want to keep all your tools nice and sharp when you're working. So let's peel a little bit. Move that can out of the way. What we're going to do is we're just going to take the draw knife. This is down pretty well, and I'm going to pull it towards me, and you see the bark comes off pretty easily. Now, when the bark comes off, that's the phloem, and it's spelled with a PH. Okay, that's what carries nutrients up the tree, but it's fibrous. It's not. It doesn't hold up. Hey, that looks really nice. Not going to last. It's going to peel off. So it's got to come off too. What we want to do is get down to the white part. In this case, white part of the maple. And this is where the short draw knife would come in handy in an application like this, because I'd have more room to go back and forth. I wouldn't have to turn this as often. Again, I don't happen to have one, so I'm using this one. Now, I'm not down to the heartwood. What I'm down to is the sapwood. That's the xylem. That's also a live part of the tree. And once that fibrous phloem is gone and the bark is gone, I'm going to get down to the sapwood. The last layer of the tree, the center layer of the tree, the very center is the pith, and then there's a center part called the heartwood. And in maple, a lot of time, well, depending on the species, there'll be a distinct color change in the center of that heartwood. I don't have anything I could show you, unfortunately, in the shop right now. So the heartwood's actually dead. That's what supports the tree. That's the strength of the tree. The outside of that heartwood, this sapwood, this is live, and this is what grows out and as the tree grows. Okay, that also is a live. That's a live part of the tree. So there's basically 5 layers of the tree. We want to get off the first 2 in this application. We want the bark gone, and we want that fibrous phloem gone, because that's, it, again, does not hold up. And then we wind up with just the part that we want to use. And that's either going to be, depending what we want to make, it's going to be the actual heartwood itself or the sapwood and the heartwood. What happens after this is all said and done? We showed you where we started. We showed you the peeling the bark, peeling the phloem, router sled, flattening it out. Well, this is what you get in the end. You get a nice little piece like this. Now, again, this was an ask. I made this for someone, and what we have is a maple cookie that we dressed. We put instead of bow tie in it, and that bow tie is a piece of maple also. But now the grain is running this way instead of this way. So the grain's 90 degrees to the cookie. And why this is here is there's actually a little check mark in the cookie that's starting to form, or started to form when this was drying out, you know, in the barn. So what we do is we take a router, we cut this shape out about 3/8 of an inch deep. We have a bow tie that fits in that shape. And again, it's a little more than 3/8, so it sticks up. Gets glued, gets tapped in nicey nice. And then what'll happen is we'll go with a very, very sharp chisel. We'll take the top of that bow tie off, and then it becomes part of the sanding process. And you finish it. This was finished with Danish oil and clear polyurethane, water-based polyurethane. The water base is less prone to change in color. It's not going to yellow. Oil base will turn a little amberish as it ages. That wouldn't be too bad up here, but on my legs, I wanted the legs to stay. So these legs are maple, and again, we use the bit to cut the ends, and they all fit together. But what I did was they were pickled white, and then sanded off to show some of the spalting through here on this maple. It's actually a little bit of fungus because the maple was starting to get old, and it was getting ready to start getting some growth in it, some rot in it. But at this stage of the game, this is still rock hard. It's beautiful. I like the way the colors look, the different show through, the distressing kind of. And then on the bottom we put little felt feet. So that was our project for this particular installment. Our next project that we're going to go, I'll give you a little preview. You're not going to be able to see much, but if you saw it all, then what's the point of coming back? This is actually going to be a bear, and he's got a nice little Boston Bruins spoked bee over here on his shoulder, and it's going to be carved out 3D to hang in the driveway as a lifelong Bruin fan. So this is going to be our next little project, and I'll show you that when I start carving this, because we have to carve the shape out, then we have to carve out some accents, and it's going to get painted with acrylic paint. And I think this is going to be really cool. So I hope you come back for that next video. This one's going to be a real lot of fun. But here you can see his ears and just their general shape. But it's going to be a 3D carving that goes out in the driveway. All right. Thanks for joining us again. I have fun doing this stuff. I hope you like the videos. I hope they're informative. I mean, they're not down to nitty-gritty type informative, but I hope they give you some ideas of some of the things you need to consider when you're working with these things. Okay, especially power tools. Know how to use them. If you don't know how to use them, don't just buy something and assume, because you can cause yourself a problem. Make sure you read the manual. And if you need some help, there's adult education, industrial arts type classes and all. And maybe you know somebody that likes doing this, and you can go hang out with them and do it. But this is a fun hobby for any of you that might be interested. You don't need thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff to do it. Hand tools will work. They worked for hundreds of years, hand tools. Okay, we have tools like the router sled that cut the time down now, that I use some of the more mundane tasks. But all these different things you can do with hand tools. They're out there. You get them at estate sales. You can get them. Some people go to sell and they list them on a different those different sales sites. You go and look at it. If it looks like it's a piece of junk, it's probably a piece of junk. If it looks like it's clean, it's been taken care of, hey, offer them some money, take a chance on it, learn how to use it. It's actually a pretty good time. All right, thanks, and next time we'll check out the bear.